Okay.
Okay, everyone, I would like to call the library board meeting for January 17th, 2023 to order at 5:05 p.m. If you'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brittany, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Gail?
Here.
Carrie?
Here.
Michelle?
Here.
Tony? Here. Tracy?
Here.
Phyllis?
Here.
Nancy?
Here.
Barb?
Here.
We have a quorum, and Alderperson Schrader is excused.
All right. If you'd be so kind to inform us about the statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
All right, thank you, Brittany. Not seeing anyone here. I believe there to be no public comments, so we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of December 20th, 2022, as well as the December 22 financials.
No motion.
I was going to say move to approve.
Believe it or not, I did
I'll
did not wear my hearing aids tonight.
Oh.
So, I
Okay,
hope
so Tracy first and Michelle second.
All right. Any discussion?
You know, the only thing I was thinking of is when we're doing our meeting minutes, should we say like B. Schroeder and D. Because it's like they have the same last names, and sometimes I don't know because they're both trustees.
Or you could do alderperson.
I think she normally does
It
alderperson.
says trustee.
Yeah.
Like on our
Oh,
meeting
okay. On the
minutes.
minutes. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I will make note of that. Good call on that.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay, any discussion, anyone?
On page 3, the top one, Ingersoll lighting, is that to do with the new desk area?
Is it packet page?
Oh, it might not be packet
Are the
page
packet
3.
numbers not on this again?
It's page 3 of the financials. Page 3 of the financials, sorry.
Yeah, but there are
lower
no
right hand.
Are there no packet page?
No.
No.
Well, okay, I'm making a note of that too. That's different, and I'm not sure why. Okay, apologies about that. I will look into what happened there.
You had one job, Brittany.
Okay, Ingersoll lighting. There we are. That is likely due to some LED stuff. That's not from the. It's not from the circ desk. So
Okay.
LED replacement bulbs and might have been some parking lot light bulbs. So.
Oh, yeah, they changed all the light bulbs in the parking lot.
They did, or not. There were some lighting issues actually at the end of 2022. There was a disruption with one of the parking lot lights, and it ended up not shorting out all of them, but it made all of them not work until they could get them fixed. But it's not like everything broke. It's just there was one thing that had to be fixed. So.
Right. Anyone else? Brittany, on page 2, card member service 4 down, a data cable is $1,400.
Yep. So.
Yikes!
Yeah. So that's Cat 6 cable.
Oh, so it's beyond what we would use at home then. Something.
So I think that people use Ethernet cable at home to, hardwire into their modem or whatnot. But I bought many spools of it because we had to get the data cable. It was like 180 feet times 10. Just to get all the runs that we need to support the circulation.
I thought it was one cable.
Oh,
that's why.
It's many. 4 boxes of Cat 6 cable.
Yes.
And it was charged to the capital budget, so it didn't hit our operating budget. So it was a planned expense when I put in the request for the funding to council in 2021.
Okay. And then my, what would I call it? Not necessarily my silly question of the month, but I always have one. I know we do a lot of work with Baker and Taylor, and that's great. Okay. But I was just curious, do we ever look for the same books like on Amazon and see if they're less expensive, or is there a rationale for, you know, like, do we have to use Baker and Taylor? I'm just curious on some of the more popular books out there.
Yeah. Staff will go to Amazon for certain items, but we do try to go through Baker and Taylor when we can. There are certain things that we do get a discount through Baker and Taylor, so by and large the items should be cheaper than Amazon. But there's also efficiencies that can come up as a result of like buying in bulk and being shipped out. We also get access to certain, records. We get credits from Baker and Taylor for our Sustainable Shelves program. So there's definitely values for it.
And they're a library company, so I understand. I was just curious if there was a big difference or anything like that.
It's a good question.
Because competition's always a good thing.
Yes.
Okay, anyone else?
Can I ask a quick question about Baker and Taylor? Are they fulfilling their orders?
You know what? They are more. I've heard chatter from other libraries that are not getting their items or not getting their items in a timely way. There is a certain percentage of items that are always back ordered, and sometimes staff will cancel those orders and go find them on Amazon or somewhere else. But by and large, we are getting. We're not having problems that I've seen and heard other libraries having. I know their competitor Ingram, I think, is one of the competitors. Is it Ingram or
we have Follett?
You have Follett.
We can't get our books, so I have to do a lot of stuff to get books.
Yeah, there's one other company out there that I know some libraries have switched to, but the scuttlebutt there is that they all seem to be a very similar company with similar challenges. So.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if there's.
Oh, a quick question.
Yeah.
On page 2, what is deep freeze?
Isn't that a great name? Deep freeze is the software that IT puts on our public computers that is sort of it's a protection software. So if something were to happen, like a patron were to bring malware and work on the computer, it allows us to shut down and restart the computer, and the computer completely resets. Anything that the patron did on that computer at that time gets completely wiped away. So it's a security protection measure there. The other really nice thing about it is patrons come here sometimes to work on their taxes or whatever they come to do. And it's really nice to be able to, and they're worried, like, did I forget to, if I deleted the file but it's in the recycle bin now. And it's really nice because we can tell the patrons, just restart the computer if you're concerned, because it will completely wipe whatever, document you may have accidentally saved, or maybe you signed into your email but forgot to sign out. So it's a nice reset button. So it's nice. We really like it.
I love the video game credits for 10 cents and 15 cents.
I know. Yes, that is a story that is insignificant to share.
Not even going to add to it. I'm glad we're making some revenue, getting some money back.
Oh, Brittany, I have a technical question.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing on the screen in back of you is totally really delayed. Is it always like that?
Yeah. It's so, and I could try to turn. So there's a TV screen behind me which reflects for the people who are physically here, all of you, but I'm sure it's rather disorienting to see it. So, okay, we can do that.
I mean, Nancy looks great, but I can't see her. I just see me and it's like, wow, I did that like 3 minutes
Oh,
ago. And
you're,
I
so you're seeing like a slow motion leg thing? Yeah, there's not much I can do about that.
It's not even showing her talking yet.
Yeah, because we're using a lot of technology right now, meaning that the AirTame is a wireless presentation software, but there's going to be a delay between what I do on my computer and what ends up happening here. And then if you're watching it on the screen through Zoom, yeah, it's...
okay.
You're not going crazy, I can tell you that.
It's like, wow, what's wrong here? My connection must be horrible.
No, it's not you, it's just the delay of the presentation software.
Okay.
And I couldn't
Just
hear
so
any of that
everybody
conversation.
knows my reactions are very delayed.
We will pause in order to give you a chance to leap in.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen her talk yet.
I'm sorry, again, I forgot my hearing aid, so if somebody does have a question or whatever, yell loud enough so I don't interrupt. Did you have one?
No, I'm just saying, have you seen her talk? I haven't seen her talk yet.
Can you hear? The most important thing is the hearing.
Yes. Yeah.
If we wanted to try to improve on what's happening here, it would be money. I could look into it. It just sort of depends on, where we want to put our pennies.
Okay. I do have another question. I'm sure there's an easy explanation, but I looked at the revenue side, and the Friends revenue was $6,916.16. Their expense was $7,157.97. Even though it shows like they were 143% over, it would be almost like, to me, the revenue was about the same as the expense.
Okay, so you're looking first at the library revenues worksheet.
Which I don't know because I don't have the pages right
it's
now.
the bottom line item.
Yeah, library Friends revenue.
And you're seeing the year-to-date of...
$6,916.16. And then when you go to this sheet, this page, and you look at library Friends expense, $7,157.97. And I'm sure this isn't the answer, but does that mean that the revenue is less than the expenses?
Let me think for a second.
Am I being too simplistic here?
Okay, this is what I think happened, but I can always verify it for next time. The library Friends revenue line item is the amount I think that's the amount of money that they make from the book sale.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're like doing our transactions at the cash register, processing those charges. The Friends expense is the amount of money that we have charged to them. So
you have charged to them, not that we paid them for buying
So if let's say a staff member pays for a bunch of supplies for a Friends-sponsored event, they'll charge it to the Friends expense account that we get reimbursed for it, but the Friends revenue is just the amount that they've received through the book sale, but they give us more money than just $6,000.
Yes.
So I don't think those numbers always necessarily match up.
Okay.
Let me double check on that for next time.
Yeah, I just was so close, and I'm like, is that a wash for the year? And
it's not.
Yeah.
I'm
assuming not.
Their revenue is the book sale, which is about that amount of money. But then, of course, they also make money on the Library Lovers Month, the
The garden walk.
and the Santa event and jamming on Janesville. So, and all of those would not come through our budget line.
Okay.
Because that's revenue that runs through their budget
not
line.
right here, so.
That's
Okay.
That's my answer, but I will double check.
And the library friends expense is not what we pay them to put on the events? The library friends expense is when they.
Anything that the friends are willing to pay for, we pay for first typically, right? We put it on a credit card, we pay for an invoice, and then when the bill comes due, we charge it to that expense line item.
Because I think I read later on that the children's department or whatever asked them for a certain amount of money this year, so I was kind of confused at how all of it was.
Yep.
Interreacting here.
We ask the friends for a certain amount of money, and then we spend it, and then they reimburse us.
Okay.
Because if we had to wait every month for them to cut checks to then issue to these vendors, we would move at a pace that would be
I can appreciate that.
horrifying.
Okay, well, I guess if there is more explanation to be had,
I have circled those two numbers just in case I've missed something.
Okay. Yeah, I figured I just wasn't understanding something, so. All right, anything else on this? Hearing nothing, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nancy, I don't know, did Nancy hear that in time?
I'm sorry, I said aye.
Yeah, you're good, okay.
I just didn't say it loud enough.
So I'm assuming we have a unanimous vote? Okay. I do not have a report this evening. We will move on to the director's report.
Okie dokie. I am going to err on the side of brevity, so I'm just skipping right along. I'm just going to highlight a couple things, and then I'll entertain any questions about the report. February 3rd is the next First Friday Coffee Group Friends meeting, so it's usually from 9:30 to 11. Which I know isn't accessible to everyone, but if you're interested in ever meeting with the friends and connecting with the friends, that's a great way to do it.
Is that here?
Yes, it's in the back area where the magazines are. Very cozy. The strategic planning process work is underway. I'm working with 2 different staff work groups right now on the visual survey boards and the focus groups and one-on-one interview framework. And once I do some foundational work, strategic planning, I'll be meeting with you guys so that we can take a look at all that, see what tweaks we want to make and improvements we want to make. And then the community survey and website usability work groups will start next. I'm really trying to look at the full timeline of the year and deploy them. We can't deploy them all at once, and sometimes that muddies the waters, and I want the community survey to go out right at the start of summer when we're seeing higher traffic. So doing that work right now, I just wanted to let you know that it's in progress. It's not something that I'm sitting on. And strategic planning, just know that I'll be talking to you soon. I guess my question, we want to honor the full board's time. We want to make sure that we're doing committee work in committee, right? There's a reason why we have a strategic planning group, but I don't want the full board to feel isolated or uninformed about the strategic planning process. So I guess my question is, regarding the community survey, that's really our core thing. The other stuff, the visual survey, the focus groups, that's all really important too. My personal opinion is I feel like we can do that work in strategic planning and then just get it moving. Regarding the community survey, once staff have started working on it a little bit and given their perspective, and then it goes to strategic planning and we've worked on it some more, would the board like to see the final survey before it's deployed to the community?
Anyone have a comment?
I would like to.
Sure.
I say yes. Nancy says yes.
Nancy says yes. All right, very good. So then that will be something that we'll work on, refine on, and you'll see that survey before we deploy. Very good. Thank you.
Are we surveying every single year? Just curious.
So we do, I would call them micro surveys every year.
Nancy's talking.
Oh,
That was
No, that's the delay.
yeah, it's the delay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
That
so-
is the delay.
Yeah. We do micro surveys every year, so we gain feedback during Library Lovers Month. We get feedback from the teens every year. We have a teen feedback cycle that we just actually started deploying this year, although we've gotten feedback from them before. So we have, comment and feedback forums. So we do that sort of stuff throughout the year, every year. But then the community survey happens once every 3 years.
Wow, it seems like you just did it. That's why I was asking.
I know. And we used to have only a 3-year strategic plan, and I bumped it to 4 years because this process is intensive, and to turn around and then just 2 years later do it again.
Right, that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah, so it's been 3.5 years since we've done the community survey, and I've only run the strategic planning process once before in 2019. Once we do the process again this year, we can sort of reflect on it. I'm really curious to see what we get. If we don't get a lot of new stuff, that may indicate that maybe we need to expand it. The city has a comprehensive plan that's like a 2050 plan. It has a 30-year plan. Maybe we reach it out a bit more. So I think this year will be very telling to see what type of content we get.
3.5 years would have been right at the time the pandemic started.
Well, so 2019, from January 2019 through December 2019 was the last strategic planning process.
2019.
So
Right.
Kind of starting. Yeah. But
We've
not-
all
Yeah, so
talked
I-
about 2020 and 2021.
I mean,
so
things have
that's why it
changed
seems
a lot,
yeah.
so I also think we'll get some new stuff based on how people are using the library now. The electronic resources have really boosted. Also, our building is a lot different.
Yeah,
I
it
perceive we're not gonna get a lot of physical building changes because we're in a good place with the building, unless I don't even want to say it. Unless some big things break. I mean, this building is beautiful. Everyone who comes into it says it. I'm very proud of
Wait
it.
till the CERT desk comes too.
Yeah, can't wait. I'm so excited about that. So
What is the date on that, by the way?
It's in here, but I don't remember what it was.
is January. We're doing prep work this week and early next week, so we're starting to pack stuff up. January 30th through February 3rd is when the old desk gets demoed and the carpet gets removed, and the new desk is getting installed February 7th and 8th. The electrician is coming next Friday.
So there's a wire hanging from
The data cable's being run right now, so yeah, I'm really excited. I thought it would be delayed more because of the carpet mill, but the carpet mill ended up getting through sooner than I thought. So yeah, we're in active mode on that project right now, and by February 8th, which is right before the Saturday fundraiser, which is great. I really wanted to get it all set, so I couldn't be more excited about this. It's all coming together. This project has really tested my logistics planning skills because there was just so many pieces to it, and ironically, it was less complex to do the full carpeting than it was to do this desk. It really, I'm so glad it'll be here and done. So.
Well, that's good for you as well, because then you won't be dealing with those types of tasks. So,
Right, because I feel like the surveying stuff is taxing on you. Like all of the little groups that you have to talk to and all the focus groups and all this stuff. I don't know. That's why I don't want it to happen too often, because I feel it's just going to take you away from your job.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's so kind of you to say. The good news is this year what I said was I'm building staff work groups. I'm delegating some stuff now. Sam and I are doing this work groups. So she's going to take some stuff and I'm going to take some stuff. Michelle and I are working on the visual boards. I'm doing the strategic planning part, and then she's executing the visual boards. So I'm trying to be more strategic about bringing other staff into it. The good news is it connects them more to the strategic planning process also, which is so important because I know some places where staff don't know the strategic plan, they weren't a part of it, and that's not good for buy-in, for just general education, for excitement, all that stuff. So I'm developing work groups this year. And it's really just a result of, I had never done a strategic planning process before, so I built it from the ground. I didn't know what to ask people to do. Now I know. And so it's so exciting 5 years later to, one, be able to get into the groove of things, and two, have done this before. Not that there's not ways to improve it, and we are thinking of better ways. I think it was Tracy, your idea of doing a kids survey, one specifically modeled for them. So we're going to be working on that, or a kids focus group, whatever it is. And we did a teen focus group and survey last time specifically, and we'll do that again. But I'm really excited to see what the kids say. So that'll be fun.
They'll say the darndest things.
Yes.
They'll be very honest with you.
Yes. My daughter, and this will go on the public record, called me a cheeky little nose the other day.
Cheeky little
and
nose.
I didn't know how to take that. I wasn't sure if it was a compliment. I wasn't sure if I was getting insulted. So yes, I'm excited from a humor perspective, but also they have some really interesting things to say. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm excited to get this process started, and
Okay. The only other thing that and maybe it's not mature enough to ask, and I don't know how you pronounce it, Udemy?
Udemy.
Yeah. Is there anything to talk about at the moment, or and what would this replace? I guess was more my.
Yeah, good question. So Udemy is a software that, like I said, the Burgess Library System's paying for and piloting right now, and we just got it started. There were some hiccups. Library cards weren't working basically across the system, which was a problem for people getting into it. So we're going to start in earnest our marketing of it soon. But we are comparing it to Gale Courses. And Gale Courses is instructor-led courses on a variety of topics, business, computers, technology, Spanish, things like that. The difference is with Gale Courses, there are enrollment start and end dates. They're generous, right? They're like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is. The classes are asynchronous. So basically you go online, the professor gives homework, readings to do, tests and quizzes. You do all that. You can comment, talk to the teacher, and then at the end you get a certificate. The certificate does not create college credit, things like that. That would be a much more expensive product, I'm sure. Its niche value here is that it's really something that people can put on their, it's one, general personal growth, like there's one on QuickBooks. But then secondly, it's something that is good for continuing education for small businesses, right? Small businesses can't afford to send their staff to, an accounting class, but maybe this accounting Gale Courses gives them a good leg up. It's good for people who are job searching. They can put additional learning opportunities on their resume as well. The downside to Gale Courses is that it has start and end dates. So if you've missed it, you have to wait until the next one. And if now's not a good time because something happens in your life, there's a high dropout rate for Gale Courses. Like people start it, a lot of people start it, but then they just don't finish because life happens. The thing about Udemy is it has the same quality like instructors, but they are recorded in advance, recorded lessons, and so people can watch them at their leisure. There's no enrollment starts and end dates, and there is still like readings to do, and whatnot, but it's all really at your own pace. So that could be the appeal. Now, this could serve two different patron bases, right? There are people who really like the structure, the fact that they can interact, at least back and forth with an instructor. There's more, again, tests and quizzes where they'll get feedback on. So that may be a structure that feels more familiar to people in an education setting, or they may like that for the structure. Some people, with how their life is, will prefer the more, at your own pace model. We're comparing them both. They cost the same amount of money. And the feedback or the general inkling that I'm getting from the other directors in the system is that it's not possible to pay for both of them. I don't see a scenario where the directors vote to keep both of them, even though they could serve different populations. And there's probably a Venn diagram where there are some people who will like both of them. So there's going to be a decision that has to be made. And so this is an interesting pilot to do. I'm definitely going to be looking for feedback from patrons on that and from staff as well. And we'll see what happens.
So the 24-member library, is that all southeastern Wisconsin? Or is it
Waukesha and Jefferson County.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Bridges library system. So I predict that by May we will have to have the conversation at the system level, because if we end, the products are both by the same company.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem like there's a big deal to be had if we get both, and they're the same cost, and it's just libraries are basically saying it would be difficult to afford both. And frankly, that would be true for us as well. We would have to cut other things in order to make that happen. And I don't think there's enough gains to having them both. So I was taking a class on boundaries and communication. It was interesting. We were testing it out, so we shall see. But it's a good one. I'd love for you to check it out if you wouldn't mind. You put in your library card, you sign up for an account. It's a pretty accessible platform. And I put some of the details there on how to access it, but of course, please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to type out instructions with links if that would be a helpful thing for you.
I'm curious, Nancy. I'm curious about the origin of Udemy. Is it an acronym or?
I do not know. My thought was it's you to me, like a play on you to me, like from you to me.
Right, and Academy.
Or you Academy. I bet you're right. I just looked at it and went, silly people making up words, and I moved on.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I bet you're right, Carrie. I bet that's it. Any questions about my report?
If there are no questions about your report, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell the board what a marvelous job you did at St. Leonard's last Monday.
Thank
you. You were so informative. You were so impressive, as well as the press. It was a wonderful afternoon. I've received many emails positively about what you've done for us. So thank you.
Oh. Thank you, Nancy.
I want the board to know how that turned out. Marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was.
Is everyone hearing that? I'm not.
Yeah. So
it's okay. You do not have to paraphrase for me as long as everybody else.
We visited St. Leonard's with the Friends to present to a community group that Nancy runs about the Friends of the Library and then also the library itself. And it was great. You had an amazing turnout. There was at least 40 people there, I swear.
Yes, I counted 54 people.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was.
I have to say, a lot of people really just didn't review and read. It was a very good presentation.
Yeah, the mayor was there as well, giving a city update. So yeah, it was great. It was a great crowd, and hope to see some of those faces. I would be happy to come back anytime. So I have endless things to talk about.
Okay. We can wrap up this item. Anybody have any other comments or whatever? Okay, hearing none. We can move on to unfinished business. And I see nothing under this agenda item, unless anybody has something, but we can't take it any further than to bring it up. Okay, hearing none, we move on to new business. And the first item, maybe the only item, is a sample of request for reconsideration form. We have more than one.
Yes. Okay, so this is just labeled a discussion because at this time it's a form, it's not part of a policy. It was brought up last time when we were reviewing the collection development policy about the status of the form, whether it's part of the policy, and whether it would make sense to have it online. Currently, it's not part of the policy, although it's referenced in the policy as part of the procedure, and it is not online. So I had said that I was going to talk to other library directors and get a sense of what their decision making was and why, and talk with the staff as well, the staff that purchased. The reason why I put this first is because I wanted you to be able to see it and what it looks like before we get into the conversation of the collection development policy, so that when we get to the collection development policy, we've already seen the form. So here it is. I'm going to go over it just very briefly, and then I will tell you what I learned from my director colleagues and staff. So the top of it has an acknowledgement that this item can become a matter of public record. We want that to be clear to people so that they know that what they're submitting could become a public record. I think that, that isn't always obvious or apparent to people when they email us or when they, fill out paperwork for us.
Can I ask a question? Because it says it becomes.
Yes.
So that's different than may become.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
just because we've had to go through this.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a public record. Now, whether or not somebody requests it, I guess.
Okay.
So, I suppose I don't want to use soft language. You're right. I said may, but I don't think I want to use soft language on that because it could get requested at any time, and I don't want people to look at the may and think, well, I wonder what conditions exist. It's a public record. Whether or not it becomes public is another matter. And, of course, there's rules about you can't just request everything and get everything. I think that's another misnomer. Like, people just think, well, I can request everything and get everything. It really depends on what they're asking for and what they get. But okay, let's see here. So requester information, a library card barcode, and that is, I added that based on what I perceive to be the changes that we're making to the policy. Now, of course, if something were to change in tonight's conversation, I would remove that. But one of the changes that I was suggesting to this policy is that people need to have an up-to-date library card in order to submit. And so that field I added to the form. Then the questions are really just, tell us more about your concerns. And yeah, so that's the high level of this form. Any questions about the form before I go into the results that I got from folks?
There's a typo in number 1.
Just where I wanted it. A typo. Okay.
It says, if not, which part have you read, view, listed to? It should be listened to.
Sure enough.
I'm sorry, the question was?
I put listed instead of listened.
Oh.
Just a typo in one, Gail.
I'm sorry, everyone. I won't let that happen again.
Okay.
The only question, comment that I had is this the place for a little information about the appeal procedure? Or would you rather not have even on this form that there is a potential appeal procedure?
So the way the process works, I mean, I suppose that information could be put here. This form is always handed with a copy of the collection development policy, it would be.
It is in there.
And that whole process is listed. So what we would do is say, here are the steps, and here's the form.
Yeah.
Now, we could add it. It doesn't hurt to have it twice, but they would always have a copy of the policy that outlines the process with the form. Okay, I'll start on the information I received, and then we can always talk more. Okay, so like I said, right now the status is that it is a form that is part of a procedure, and that procedure is referred to in the policy, but it's not part of the policy. So the question at the December board meeting, should the form be part of the policy and posted online? Okay, 77% of directors said that the form was mentioned in some way in the policy. 61% said that they posted it online as a page of the policy. I asked them for tell me why you either have it or don't have it. The reasons for having it as part of the policy and online was patron access and transparency. The reasons for not having it, those that didn't have it, said they valued separating policy, which is expectations approved by the board, from procedure, which is how it gets done, how the policy is executed, which is detailed by staff or the director. They said they wanted to avoid spam or fake requests. They wanted to avoid illegitimate requests, so requests that don't meet the policy criteria. If it's online, somebody from somewhere could fill it out, and then they wanted to encourage people to come in and speak with staff, so that staff can provide initial background, answer any questions. And they also said that not having it online encourages people to take a moment versus filling something out maybe in the heat of the moment. So that was feedback from the directors. The staff, I asked for follow-up feedback, and they sort of echoed what the directors said, that we have other forms that are not part of policies, so the separation of procedure versus policy. And then this is from a staff member. I'll paraphrase it, but I'll try to read some of it directly. They said that they deeply value the opportunity to talk to patrons when they have questions or concerns about materials. They really enjoy talking to patrons about why a book was chosen and placed where it was. They think of concerns and challenges as chances to educate community members about the role of libraries. They said that they value those conversations, and they can do it respectfully, and then also deliver the reconsideration form and policy if it becomes part of the conversation. They said their second reason for advocating not having it was that the possibility of requests being printed off in bulk, so that it could be mass printed off, and the possibility of that being submitted simultaneously in the because each request would have to be gone through the process. What would that do to staff time if that were to happen? So that was the feedback I received. I think when I first spoke with you, I said that sort of my two cornerstone thoughts were that part of the conversation is so important. We've had people come with concerns before, and if it had been online, they would have been challenges that were submitted, but they came in person and they became conversations, and they were very like productive conversations. Like the staff built a really good, I think, relationship. The person was able to get connected to different resources. They were able to get some information. I'm not saying that everyone left thinking like everything is, perfect, but, they left with new information, and the challenges ended up, not getting issued. So.
But you have absolutely no documentation of that whatsoever.
Actually, we fill out incident reports for those conversations. So.
Wouldn't that just be the same thing as this? Like you would have their disputes, and then your conversation, and it would be all documented at the same time.
So, once this form gets filled out, per the process and the procedure, it goes to the director, we form a staff committee, we review the entire item. If it is somebody that verbally is issuing a concern in this conversation, it's just a conversation. The staff fills out, this happened. It makes me aware of, things that go on in the library. But we don't form a staff committee. We don't, because it's not a challenge. It's a conversation until it becomes a challenge. And
where do those incidents reports go, and how do you fill those out, and is there a form for that? I just think you're really setting yourself up for, I don't know. I'm concerned because of the way the world is right now.
Yeah. So I guess my question, the incident reports go to me. I keep them in a file. It's informative to me. It's not something I take action on unless, for example, let's say there's a patron that we have a historic problem with. Fill out an incident report once. Okay, well, staff talked to the patron, told them not to do X. Okay. If I start getting multiple incident reports, then I have a documented path. It may be time to have a more firm conversation with that patron, or tell them, you know what, we've had this conversation 4 times now. We're not going to have it again. So it's informative to me. It allows me to analyze trends. But unless they submit the challenge paperwork, it's not a challenge, right? And I think that's a really important distinction, that there's questions. People can ask questions without it becoming a challenge. And so I guess my question to you is, I think it's important to document things. And if someone wants to go through the procedure that we outlined, the challenge procedure that outlines in the policy, they need to fill this out. Otherwise, it's a question. And we do get questions a lot, not just about items. Why do you do X? Why do you charge for public meeting rooms? Why do you, I don't like it that the children's area doesn't have, we get questions all the time that are critical in nature, but it doesn't have to be something that escalates necessarily to a point where we're forming staff committees and putting in the work that it does. And so, there are conversations that become challenges, but I don't think it always has to be that way. And so what we really have to think about is, what is the best opportunity to make sure that these conversations are happening? It's not us trying to block a challenge.
It kind of feels like it. I'll be honest with you.
I can't hear.
No, that's okay. I'll try to paraphrase everything.
Okay.
So, before the internet, people, would have to come in and talk to us anyway. And if someone contacted us and said, let's say I have accessibility issues, can you please send me the form? We would absolutely send it. But there is value in having the conversation. And if someone called me, it's not like I would say, no, you can't have the form.
As far as this form, though, if I was handed this form, I would just say, goodbye. This form is, to me, not very nice. If I saw a material that I didn't like at the library, I would not fill out this form. I would just avoid that area of the library 100%.
When you say the form is not nice, what?
So, you want all of my information about something that maybe my child saw at the library, like a book on display that was disturbing maybe to my child. If I had that happen, I would say that book was placed there by Miss Abby. She is the one that picked it. She is the one that put it there. Miss Abby is in charge of those books in that area. I can't argue with her. It's her job. You know? If I filled this out and said, this is my name and this is what was the problem, you would probably, from how this whole setup is, you would have a committee with Miss Abby. Miss Abby would say, I picked that book. It's a good book. The critics said it was excellent. I put it there because I thought other people would like it. Like, it would change nothing.
So, in theory, in a perfect world, if staff have followed the collection development policy, then you're right. Because if it follows the collection development policy, then every item in here has its place per the collection development policy. So, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't give an opportunity to reevaluate. And that's what that opportunity is.
Can there be a step on here because these things happen? I've been reading like a mad woman, and this book is rated or recommended for 5th through 8th. Well, they talk about vaping, there's beer party, someone is suicidal. So I have to make my decision. Now, if I only went with the reviews, it says it's okay, it's good. So for me, I'm wondering on here, you list this stuff, but also could you having them come in, having a call, having a conversation, discussion, because there will be things that parents will bring up and they'll let me know, but we don't go to a formal removal. It first starts off as a discussion. That's part of it, so that we can, like, the person said, it's part of education. And because we can't read everything and know everything, is it possible to have that discussion before it goes into a full reconsideration?
Well, but yeah, so that's the goal, right? The goal is to start with a conversation.
But I feel like you need to have some sort of documentation of that. I don't think that it's a smart idea to go into it as it's just a conversation and think it's not going to be a bigger deal. That's being very naive in today's world.
Well, so like I said, we document it with an incident report. So it's written down by whatever staff member that had the conversation.
So is there a form for that? Do we have a form for incident reports?
Yeah, there is an incident report form. It's very basic. It just says incident report, date of occurrence, staff involved, patron's name if available, and then detail the incident, and then was emergency services called. And so staff fill it out from everything from somebody fell and hurt themselves to there was a conduct issue in the building that was...
I feel like that's like two different things.
Yeah, me too.
This is literature, and you're talking about someone tripped in the hallway and maybe hit their head on the corner of a table. Like, two different things. I think we really need to look at this as being an incident report for books and, audio and whatever it is that people have issues with.
But then isn't that just the challenge form? Or are you suggesting that there's a pre-challenge form?
Are you calling this the challenge form?
Yeah, is this?
This is the challenge form. This is the request for reconsideration form.
Okay.
So can there be on here that one of the steps is Well, a discussion before, you know, just, and then it's right on there, so they know they get to talk with you. But then if it does need to go further, then you have that, but you would have record.
So one of the things I was actually going to bring up when we get to the collection development policy review, and this is something that I didn't learn until very late, so it's not like an edit that I could have put into the policy. But I learned from one of the larger libraries in our system that their first step in the collection development policy, reconsideration process, challenge process.
They've got too many names.
Sorry.
Reconsideration's supposed to sound not as harsh.
There you go. Yeah. So right now, step 1 is request for reconsideration. A patron will pick up a copy of the policy along with the request for reconsideration form, right? That's the first step. And then they fill it out and it gets submitted and we go through the process. Their step 1 is that they set up a meeting with the director.
There you go.
So what I was going to suggest, and I'm sorry that it's a twisting way to get there, but what I was going to suggest is, wouldn't that be a great part of this procedure, that it's a formalized conversation? And then probably what I would do is fill out the conversation in an incident report afterwards just to have the information. Now, at the end of that conversation, and it might be me or it might be the selector. Sometimes the best person to have that conversation, frankly, is the person who purchased the book, because they can say the why of it. They can give more background into the collection area. And they can sometimes speak about that better than me. That's sort of it really depends.
No, I get it, because I do that. I'm on the education committee for the school board, and we have to approve every single book and whatever it is that people are bringing forward and stuff. And I need to know, why is it the teacher, the group, or whatever chose what they did, or else I have no idea. Like, that would be kind of nonsense to go off of that. But I still feel like this needs to be part of. I don't think you should go to the incident area. I think you need to use this as your data
so your
collection.
First one is your your discussion. You have it, and then at that point together, and I think that they may like it too, you decide that yes, we want to go forward, or no, we don't. This has been, and then you're both on the same playing field. There's no emotion involved because everybody is fighting for their beliefs and their best with intent, and then you proceed together. And I think that might help some of it. So you know right after you have that meeting if this is going to go farther, or you have discussed it and they no longer have a concern. Because maybe during that concern you find out that this book has things that are very objectionable, what have you. It wasn't in the review, you didn't know.
Right.
And then at that point, you may make a decision, you and your librarian said, hey, wow, we didn't know this was in there. That was slipped in, we didn't know. And that might be a time when you might decide that you would pull it out. And I don't know if they do that in public library. I mean, in school, I mean, it is, and I think of kids' books, not adults. Of course, adult things. But again, public libraries, you can have whatever you want, whenever you want. So if a first grader took something, it's like, well, kind of a belief. So I don't know how you go about that.
So, let me think here. I agree that it would be a good idea to formalize making sure that a discussion is required with staff. Like, I think that's a good, productive first step, because I think that frankly, it humanizes the process too. It's not just emails back and forth. It's not just forms being filled out. It's, hi, you're my patron. Hi, you're my librarian. Let's talk about books, which I think is a good, healthy, start of that conversation. So I like the idea of formalizing that into the reconsideration process as being the first step. however that data is collected, whether it's the incident report or whether I have an internal version of this form that's just me, like as I'm sitting here going like, okay, so they're concerned, writing that down. What I wouldn't want, what I think would be dangerous, is if that meeting was called a challenge meeting or a reconsideration meeting. I think it would be important for, at the end of that meeting, first of all, I would never make a decision at the end of a meeting about anything, right? Or maybe I would just say, okay, I've heard, okay, no, I shouldn't say that. I think I'll have to think more about this, but I don't think the end of the meeting, it would be important to have that not be a challenge already issued, right? I think the conversation is important to happen before the challenge. At the end of the conversation, if during that conversation the patron's like, okay, I've given more information about the background, how the collection development policy works, how libraries work, and if at the end they're like, you know what, with this information you've given me, I still think, this is, not a good fit for this library, and provided that on the librarian's end they didn't go, oh, page 7, okay, right? Then I think at that point is when the challenge form gets handed. But I don't think it is a good idea to have the challenge process already be started, because if every concern that came to the library kicked off a challenge or reconsideration process, that's a pretty heavy swing, I think.
So could you have a discussion form and not have it termed as a reconsideration or anything, but it's in your procedures that you would have that discussion first? You had that form, so it would be a little more weighted than an incident, but so you would have it so it wasn't part of this. Would that be more amenable, or does that seem...
What's kind of interesting to me is that I would think if you're having a conversation with an individual, you would ask all these questions that are on this form. You would ask, have you reviewed and listened to this in entirety? Have you, what brought you to this? I feel like your conversation is this sheet of paper. Like, I feel like this is what concerns you. Why do you think you're doing? So I think you're already doing this form verbally and nothing is being documented.
Well,
I mean, you're not going to the level where you're getting committees and formally doing all of that, but I feel, and that's personally how I looked at this form. I looked at it as like, this is just a request, or this is just something I want you to, I'm bringing it to your attention about something I feel that's going on within the library and stuff. And I'm not looking at this form as, now you've got all these committees informed and then you're going to pull it off the thing. I don't know if I were filling out this form, that's what I'm envisioning, unless I'm reading the policy and procedure to a T.
Right. Well, and keep in mind that sort of the way that we're having this conversation, this form no one sees this form in its current iteration until they get the policy, right? So, like, at this time, if people come and they're like, I have a concern, we have that conversation, tell me more about your concern. We chat. You're right. We do have some elements of these, not all of them, because I would say that 1 through 3 happens, 4 through 7 does not.
You don't ask them, what do you recommend us doing with this?
No, because it's not. It's not a challenge. At that time, you're trying to figure out what are their concerns and what can I connect them to. Because, again, in theory, we want to start from a place of, hopefully we followed the collection development policy on everything that we did. So we start with that conversation, we get a little bit more information, and again, unless we turn to page 7 and go, holy cow, chances are it fits our collection development criteria. We work really hard to do that. So at that point, our goal is having that conversation, providing background on the policy, how we select items, and then really just the offer of, can I help you find anything? Now, if in that first...
Wait, how can I help you find anything? But they're just challenging something that you have.
They're asking questions or showing concerns. But you give some background information, right? Mm-hmm. This is how we purchase information or purchase items, and then it's like, clearly they were here for a reason. They were looking for something. They found something that did not match what they wanted. So ending with an offer of, what are you looking for? What can I help you find? Now, if in that conversation that occurs, one, and honestly, these conversations have happened to us, where they go, okay, thanks for giving me more insight into how things are purchased or organized, things like that. That we can't assume people know that when they come to us with concerns. So we had several of those conversations last year, and the end with the offer of what were you looking for? What can we connect you with? And then we show them different areas, we point them out to different items, things like that. Now, if in that moment, after that initial conversation, they go, you know what, that background information you gave me, it doesn't really move my needle, I have strong concerns about this item, what's the next step here, what can I do? That's when we say, well, actually, here, let me give you a copy of the policy, this is our request for reconsideration form, if you would like, to take it. And then they would take it. So, and then staff would go back and tell me, just sort of generally like, hey, there was a patron that came in, just wanted to let you know they had concerns about this item. These were a couple of their concerns, just in case they follow up with you, or they submit the request for reconsideration form. And then if I get it, then, I have all the information, not only the information that probably the staff member got from 1, 2, and 3, but then I have the additional stuff, like what, in their belief, what do they want done? How do they connect it back to the policy? That's when I form the committee, and that's when we look at the material as a whole.
But now you're just doing all hearsay.
I have a question about timeline.
Yes, Nancy.
Timeline.
Yes.
How open-ended is this timeline? Because some nagging customer could go on and on and on without closure. So
you mean the timeline for after they fill out the reconsideration form? Yeah, that's outlined in the policy. Basically, let's see, where is it? I have once the form is submitted by the patron, I confirm that I received it within a week. Appoint the staff committee to review the item. Now, of course, the item could be short, but it could be a chapter book, so we need to give ourselves some time. So we give ourselves about 4 weeks to review it.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better, too, that this isn't something you'd have to face for a year or two.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So
it kind of sounds like we're talking timelines more than anything else and how to gather the information. Tracy's concern is you're not getting a lot of documentation before that initial conversation, so it's kind of a CYA thing, right? Like we want full documentation.
It's hearsay if you're saying your staff is writing or filling out this stuff for their incident report. That's hearsay. That's not the actual person filling out the incident report.
Because if they were filling out the incident report, it would be a challenge, right? And I think.
Well, why? Why does it have to be like that? That's where I think we have the issue. Is I feel like there's no reason why we can't have our patrons in this library coming to us with any concerns that they have. And right now, it doesn't feel like we have that option because it feels like you have to talk to our librarian, and then they write up an incident report, which is subjective and not like what it is that you're actually wanting to address.
Could you have a concern form that triggers just a discussion or a meeting? Is it
So we want people to come and talk to us. I mean, that's the goal, is that if someone has a concern about anything in this library, we want them to come and talk to us, okay? And it could be anything related to the building, to any policy that we have, materials, anything. We want them to come and talk to us. And we don't have forms that we have people fill out for every concern that they have, right? It's not like if they come in and say, you know what, I think that, the public meeting room policy is a huge problem. What are you going to do about it? We don't pull out the public meeting room challenge policy form and have them fill all that out. We, as staff, take notes, write that down. If it's something that seems like it's escalated, to a big problem, staff will maybe fill out an incident report. Our first goal is this something that we can work, either give more information to or work on, right? That's the first step, because we get tons of questions all the time. We get tons of concerns all the time. And the first step is a conversation. I agree with you that it's not documented in here that people are invited to come and talk to us. Or really what it looks like is you're invited to come talk to us, or you're invited to come and fill out a form. So I like the idea of that first step in the process being have a conversation. And let's see if we can get a little information from you and get some information from me. And if it advances to the point where the background information given is not enough to move the needle, then it triggers the next step. But I don't think that the first step should be a formal challenge, and we need, that form has to be formal, right? Because we do need that documentation. And if we're filling out a pre-form before the actual form, then
I don't feel like you need a pre-form. I just feel like you need to adapt this form so that there's a documented conversation with the patron so that you have it written down that we've discussed this and this is what we've come to an agreement on. And if they want to move forward, have at it.
So could it be a condensed version of this where it's just, because this is, in terms of best practices for reconsideration forms, this is it. These are the questions. And so in my mind, it wouldn't make sense if it's a conversation and a conversation that we want to document. It doesn't make sense for me to fill out this full form at that time, because then it's a challenge. Then we're forming staff committees and we're making a decision, and if they appeal it, it goes to the board. But if what you're talking about is making sure that even that first conversation is documented more effectively, then can I suggest a modified version of this that is not called a request for reconsideration form, because it's a documentation of a conversation, and then what it would be is similar to our incident report, the name of the staff member involved, the name of the patron involved, and then the first 3 questions. Have you listened, read, viewed to the entire item? What brought this to your attention, and what concerns you? And then if we have that conversation, and at the end of that conversation, if they say, you know what, I have to go home and think about this, or if I say like, oh, I'm gonna, take a quick peek at this because I've never read this book, and if, let's say at the end I decide, oh, if it's our collection development policy, I'm just going to wait to hear back from them, and if they go home and reflect and go, nope, I think this is a problem, then they come back and go, okay, I would like to challenge this item, and then we hand them the policy, and we hand them the request for reconsideration form, which will have all this. Does that sound like an effective way to...
Something to document that you're actually, yeah.
Okay.
And it's just like a material concern, or if you want to give it a title, or you say in the procedures that it is just a concern, or, whatever title you want to give it, so it is documented.
Like instead of a request for reconsideration, it's just request of consideration.
I think we will want to be very distinctive about what is an item that is being formally reconsidered, or we'll call it challenged, if that word is, No, I feel like the naming convention for this documentation of this conversation has to feel different enough from the challenge form so that it doesn't seem like the item is being challenged, because that's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So it may be like a suggestion form, a request of a suggestion.
It's not. But at that point, they're not even really giving. They're sharing a concern, but they're not. At this point, they're not suggesting anything, because at that point, if they're saying like, nope, this is what I think you should do, then they're challenging the item.
Right.
So if a patron comes to me and says, this building is too hot, I'm going to come and be like, tell me more about what you've observed, right? And they're going to say, you need to, they're going to say, I feel hot all the time. This is a problem, okay? And then in this process that we're talking about, if I were to hand them if I were to say, like, you know what, the building's fine, then they'll be like, nope, I want to formally challenge your opinion of the temperature of the building. Then I would hand them the temperature reconsideration form, and then I'm not trying to be funny about this. I'm trying to put it in a different way. Then they would say, okay, what are my concerns? I think this building is too cold or too hot. What action do you think I should take? I really think you guys need a better boiler, right? But that first part of the conversation is just me saying, tell me more, what's happening? And then if I've decided that it's not, a valid concern, that's when they provide more information and say, this is what I think should happen. You need to investigate this further, things like that. So I will think on the phrasing of or the naming of what this initial documentation could look like. But I think it needs to feel different from
Could
a formal
you
challenge.
do, like in the policy, so with the discussion, just say in there, information will be shared in an incident form. Then it doesn't change what you do. You do incidents for everything, so it would still follow that. And then that would be the information you would take to determine if it's going to become a policy.
Your incident reports have subject headings, like the incident was an injury, the incident was temperature, the incident was book related, the incident was, do you have specific?
They're not coded by subject. They're filed sort of not alphabetically. They're filed by like year.
So maybe you need to be more specific with your incident reports.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can have this database coming in and going, oh my gosh, we had 5 incident reports on this one book. We need to probably look at this book again.
Yeah.
I think you just may need to, or it's a safety concern. 3 people have tripped on the pavement outside because the thing's too high.
That would be helpful, because let's say I decide to become a barrel racer and I leave this library, the next director will inherit those incident reports, and
how would you even go through them?
Right.
If they were just
right, yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm writing down to organize the incident reports by subject, which will be easy enough to do, and then I will make an incident report that
I think if you developed something like that, you could eliminate this, like having it be, you know what I mean? Because you would then eliminate the section of it of them disputing it and not having to go farther.
Wait, say that again.
if you develop an instant report that is about a book, about a DVD, audiobook, music CD, because there's probably maybe CDs out there that music isn't the greatest and parents might be upset about the verbiage or whatever that's on it, that you could at least have an instant report saying it's about that topic, and then you could talk about it and how you followed up.
But that would be something that I would fill out, correct?
Whoever is staff.
Their staff, yeah. Okay, yes.
But I would also acknowledge the fact that you're saying to the patron, we're filling this out together. Like, this is something that...
So how...
What if you had a signature line and the patron and the staff member had to sign the incident report? Acknowledging.
So here's my initial thought, and let's talk this out. My initial thought when I'm hearing this, though, is if I'm documenting a conversation, it's this initial gathering information and sharing some information with the patron to decide, for the patron to decide, like, did I get any new information or do I want to formally challenge this? If they're also filling this out, then to me it feels like a mini challenge before the big challenge.
I don't think that they're necessarily filling it out. They just have to be acknowledged to the fact that something's being filled out.
So,
and that you're not just doing hearsay on your own, saying your own thing.
Well, so please keep in mind that we document incident
reports
all the time that patrons don't get signatures on because the person who
you're just noting.
We can't, right? It's documentation for staff. I'm not saying that it couldn't become public record, and staff are trained very thoroughly on assume that everyone can read this. So just know that our incident reports are very respectful. They're very, but we have to document these things. If someone slips and falls, for liability reasons, if, the teenagers that messed up a portion of our library and ran out, I could not catch them, which meant that I could not get them to sign something that said, that they agree or whatever. So these incident reports are not going to have the signature of the patron.
No, but okay, so your incident reports are the same thing as what I do at the hospital every single day. We don't call them incident reports, we call them safety events.
Sure.
But I will document objectively, not subjectively, of what exactly happened.
And
patron did this, patron did that.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yes. And so absolutely everything in there is objective. And so when we've had patrons come and express concerns about materials, the incident reports that are filled out are very objective. Patron came in, they were concerned about this title, spoke with them about our collection development policy, let them know that if they had further concerns, they could talk with the director, or if they wanted to fill out, and that's just there. And it's just a trigger for me to maybe take a peek at the item, to maybe educate myself a little bit, talk to it's a little bit of prep work to know that we gave extra information to a staff member, and then we wait. And if the patron comes back, maybe we have a follow-up conversation, or maybe they come and request the request for reconsideration form, or whatnot.
Well, that's just it, because all of our safety events are followed up 100%. So that could be something that you could incorporate into this procedure.
Yeah, we could. And, it's, we could certainly, and again, sometimes we don't have the opportunity because people behave, if it's a behavioral thing. But, certainly for something like this, we could say, here, I'm going to give you this information. Do you want to follow up? Or here, usually they hand out business cards, too, which is basically our way of saying, Mm-hmm. So, we can certainly add to the incident report a field that says, would patron like a follow-up? Because we put contact information down if we can. So I can add that to the incident report form. I can organize our incident reports by subject because I do think that would be a really critical organizational strategy. I'm concerned about creating a separate form.
I'm fine if you have it on those insert reports as indicated as a book, audio, whatever. I just feel like we need to be transparent when it comes to what is the policies on things. And that's why I brought this to your attention, that most policies have a link to the form so that you're not being, not transparent. And that's probably why 60-some% have it linked in their policy.
Well, what was interesting though, and I don't know, I'm really curious. I'm on actually a committee right now with the system to have a larger conversation about intellectual freedom and policy writing and whatnot. So, oh gosh, I wonder if I'll learn new things. In the next year I might have even better and greater information about this process. But a lot of the directors that responded said, our decisions were made because historically it's always been done this way. We will be reviewing soon. So a lot of libraries are in the same boat as us, and I don't know who's changing what, right? Like that percentage may shift to a greater percentage or a lesser percentage or a mixed in the coming year because a lot of the libraries are going through their collection development policy. But in terms of transparency, I will say just to make it known that we're not trying to be completely, in the shadows about it. I mean, the policy refers to the form. It shows how you can get the form. So it's not as if we're...
So the form's online?
The form's not online. It tells you how to get the form, right? Like if we just said here's the collection development policy, and didn't mention the form, that would be a huge problem, right? That would be a complete lack of transparency. Now, it's not online, and historically for the reasons we talked about, but
I think it should be, and I think it should be able to be emailed out.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to handwrite that. I'd want Adobe fill it out like a form.
And I think there's this fear, like you read off, about mass production and this, that. That's a fear. That's not going to happen.
If you did get 200 of these in the mail or something, you would know that that's strange.
Sure.
You wouldn't treat it the same.
Well, I mean, but in the event that I guess we could cross that bridge when we came to it. Okay, so it's 6:32 right now. I really appreciate all this conversation. It's so good because this policy hasn't been looked at in a long time. I'm really excited, again, to be on this committee. I volunteered for it. I think that there's a lot that we're going to learn in the coming year. The Wisconsin Library Association is also creating its own subgroup, so there's, I think, lots of refinement to be done on policies like this. How about this because we actually haven't even gotten to the policy yet. We've sort of talked about some of it to an extent. Here are some takeaways. 1, I'm going to organize the incident reports by subject. 2, I'm going to take a look at our incident report itself and see what makes more sense. If it makes sense to have an incident report specifically for materials and an incident report generally for the rest of the building that might have a couple of these first few, just to make sure that staff are easily able to capture the data that might, help capture the initial concern. And there was a mention about, do you want to follow up? And I think that's a really good question to have. What I'm hearing right now is it sounds like there's at least some. Can I do a straw poll at this time? How many of you think it would be of value to have this online straw poll? So, all right. So I have 5 yeses, and it looks like 3 no's. Is that what I'm?
No, I'll let you.
You'll let yes. Okay. 6 yeses, 2 no's. Is that That's the 8 of you.
Did you get Barb?
Barb did not raise her hand, but Barb, did you hear my
Sorry.
Oh,
Not so good with the
that's
I'll
okay.
raise my hand.
Raise your hand.
There was no hand raising.
There was no hand raising. You can always.
But I didn't see the little thing for raising.
I know. I always am too slow to get the hand raised too.
Gotcha.
Carrie, did you have anything else to add, or?
I didn't like the form, so I didn't want it online because I didn't like this form.
Okay. And
Duly noted.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add about that, or?
I do think a long time ago there used to be like a comments or concerns box in the library. I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't know if it's even around anymore. But I think that some people who would want to say something, but they don't want to have a discussion, that they would like to be able to do it.
Yep. We do have that box still. I will agree with you that it's on our shelf next to the jobs board, so it is not in a good spot. And actually, on our action plan for this year, one of the action items is to improve it. One, it's this tattered old wooden box. It doesn't look important. It doesn't have good signage. It's not in a good location. So one of our action items this year is to, I know it may sound just as simple as buy a better box, but I'm trying to think a little more creative than that. So I agree with you. And that is going to, because there is value in, and that's why we do visual survey boards too, because not everyone wants to talk to someone. Some people want to share feedback either anonymously or, for a variety of reasons. So I agree with you. The comment box does still exist. Something that I can do very quickly in the interim is move it from where it is. I think it got moved during the reference desk renovation or something, and it just never got put back. So step one, move box. And then this year we are going to have a better solution to that. We also are going to be putting a feedback form online, which is just a general, a virtual or digital version of that comment box, so people can make those suggestions, again, either anonymously or by filling out some information. So that's coming as well, which I think will be a good addition.
Can we name it the same thing? So if it's feedback online, can it be feedback on the box? So it's the same thing?
Let's call it 7 different things and really mess people up. This is feedback, but this is a response to the No, I agree.
Can I ask Carrie a question? No, because I don't want to interrupt. Because I was hearing bits and pieces of this. So if you had the one-on-one meeting, say with Brittany first, would you be more or less likely to fill out that form? I know you don't like it. I'm just curious about how that personal meeting first would play with you.
I guess it would depend on how the meeting went with Brittany.
Let's assume it went well. Let's go that direction. Would you then be more, or because that doesn't mean you agree, but let's say, it went well, and you got information, whatever, would you be more likely to fill that form out or less likely?
I think I still would not fill out this form.
I'm sorry.
You don't like the personal information part of it?
I don't like the personal information. Why do they need to have me write my name, my address, my telephone number, my email, and then have that public? It has it all public. So that if somebody didn't like my opinion, that would be all there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. But Brittany, do you have to have it that way because you're a public entity?
Because it's going to be a public record, you state that.
So I'm thinking to, I would have to get confirmation on that. I'm thinking to request for public comment, right? So if someone were to come to this library board meeting to share a concern, or they were to go to city council meeting, they have to state their name and address in order to do that. And it does become a matter of public record, but they're required to do it or they cannot speak at the meeting. And there are other avenues for them, they could just email the mayor and be like, look, I don't want to speak at the meeting, but here's a concern that I have, and, the mayor could choose to bring that to, or not. But yeah, in those matters of having that conversation or concerns, they do require that information. I have looked at a lot of reconsideration or challenge forms, and they all request that information. Part of it is just like, I have to be able to contact you back, right? Like, if it's in a vacuum, if it's, I'm concerned about this, and this is a formal challenge, and it is significant. To challenge a book it's a significant step. Staff are going to take it seriously. They're going to go through the process, and to consider removing an item from a collection, that has to have weight to it, because if it were, I'm not saying we're trying to make it hard, but if it were something that could be done at the flick of a wrist, we'll say, then that could really have damaging effects to what is available to people. So it has to have a process to it. It has to have a really formalized process. We have to be able to talk to people and let them know, like, what the results of the process are, because part of the policy is that we're gonna let them know. And if we don't have their telephone, if we don't have their email, if we can't contact them, then we can't tell them about what the next part of the process is. So there is a way for people to share concerns without challenging the item, and that is talking to us or putting the comment in the comment box, but then it's not a formal challenge. And so that is...
And that, I think, is the important thing to have as part of the policy, is that you have that first discussion, that concern, or what have you, so you don't get down the rabbit hole of having to then do this formal, because the hope is you wouldn't, that you would have a discussion and there would be an understanding and so forth. And my big question, too, is how many things get challenged at a public library?
This year, in public libraries across the country, there have been more challenges in the past 4 months than in the past year. So challenges are on the rise. Okay. So it's certainly...
That's why I don't think it's a bad idea to look at this stuff.
Yeah. Well, but that's why I brought it before you guys, because it did need updating since it was 2014, since we last looked at it. We, meaning barely anyone in this room. So...
I have a jurisdictional question.
Yes.
Okay. Here's what I wrote. I said, what if one of our patrons gets an item from another library, thinks it's objectionable, and wants it removed? Where is the jurisdiction on that? Does it go back to the original library?
Yeah, not our collection.
I would assume so. Yep. So, but chances are they're going to think that we're, I don't want to use the wrong word, that we are somewhat endorsing the book by passing it along. And endorsing is not the right word either.
I actually think that's part of the collection development policy. We cover that. There's a section that says... I don't remember reading it because I wrote it down right here. Page 1 of the collection development policy under responsibility for selection, paragraph 3. Patrons have access to the collections of library systems, member libraries, as well as nationwide interlibrary loans.
That's what I started. Okay,
yep.
And then I still asked the question below it. It didn't really answer for me jurisdictionally who would have to accept the, are we using the word challenge? Because I'm, again, hearing back and forth here, so I don't know what the word is. So,
yeah, I mean, I think what the responsibility for selection is, the staff here are responsible for the materials in this library. Patrons have access to the other items.
So you would send them back to ABC Library that the original hold came from?
If a patron came to me and said, I don't think this book is appropriate, I would say that book is from X library. We can certainly send it back for you, but if you have a concern about this book, you have to talk.
You have to go to the original jurisdiction. I didn't know if we could be wrapped in on something like that, because, in a good way that happened to me. I actually literally did my first hold not too long ago.
Oh, congrats.
And so it just made me think of this potential issue, because if somebody is looking at all different libraries to see what their books are and they're pulling them on holds, then what happens? So you've answered that, I think, is that it goes back to the original library then.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just taking a few more notes, so this is a good time for everyone to pause and either think of any last questions about this form or think about what you're having for dinner.
I made some editing remarks, so I think I'll just leave this with you, so, because I don't want to take time.
Well, and I think that once you get to this point, you're almost in an activist type situation where you're going to have to put your name and stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can stay anonymous if you get to a point where you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's possible.
But incident reports are not public.
Okay, so.
So incident reports could become a public record,
Okay.
which is, again, why we,
Mm-hmm.
we are very factual
In the
only.
hospital?
And
I don't like the term incident related to this.
yeah,
I don't
mean,
think it's an incident,
yeah, well,
initially.
I
I don't
that
think
the
it seems
fir-
right.
I think for materials, it's probably concern, not
Yeah.
incident.
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think some of the things that I'm writing down is trying to figure out if,
Because we don't call them incident reports anymore, they're safety events.
yeah, well, and
So-
this
Or
incident,
concerns.
this
Yeah.
incident report is a catch-all for anything that we need to track and be aware of. And sometimes it can be,
Maybe it's a tracking form.
ooh, I like it.
For tracking.
Tracking
Brittany's
form.
tracking form. I like that. That is, I'm writing so many notes tonight, I'm exhausted.
Maybe it's the MPO.
Right, we still have 3 more items.
I know.
We're going to
The
table
oth-
something.
The other ones will be swift, I promise.
Okay, on the
Um,
development policy too, or?
Well, I mean, we've covered a lot of
Yeah, we
ground
have
connected to it.
already.
I mean,
Yeah.
and here's the other thing. We can talk about the collection development policy a little bit. There is no rule that says we can't move it to
Continue
next
it,
month,
yeah.
too. I mean, this is,
We can table it.
Let's do
Yeah.
that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we can table it.
Table it.
Yeah.
you guys just don't want to spend all night with me. That's very selfish.
I think your kids are calling your name.
Yeah. More like my husband's calling my name.
Do we have to, would you like to take some formal action and table this?
Yeah,
when we
let
get to it?
me, okay, tracking form. I just wanted to write down that golden title. Okay.
It just reminds me of Muskego, like tracking, hunting, and fishing. And, I don't know.
Trapping.
Traffic. That's why I was going to use the word traffic in my previous question. I'm like, no, we're not trafficking in books. So I just wanted to be very careful about
Okay.
that word. It's too bad we have to be that careful. But.
In summary, I'm going to think about renaming, and likely, yes, I'm going to rename the incident report to a tracking form because I like it. It's a more all-encompassing. I'm going to organize the tracking forms by subject for better access. Right now, I had a straw poll of 7 yeses and 1 no for wanting the form and the policy. Since we're going to be talking about this more, I'm going to do a little reflection. You guys gave me a lot of good information. I do understand that just because some of the concerns that I issued may not come to light, but I really want to reflect on this because it's important. So I'm going to take everything that you guys said, and we'll continue this conversation on that front. I noted the typo, and
is there a formal comments form for the comment box?
yes,
There is.
yes,
Okay.
A card or something that they
yeah,
fill out.
it's yeah.
I'm
And
just
they're-
thinking, what if, so we are being very careful with language, so I'm just going to go with materials concern. What if we added either a materials concern section to the comment card, online and not, so that other comments can be, processed that way? Materials concern could start this loop. Or what if on your incident report, tracking report, you had a section just to differentiate between actual incidents falling down and whatever you talked about versus materials concern, which is kind of sounds like what this is.
Yeah, let me think about it. Let me think about,
What
like-
does it say on the comment suggestion form?
it, I think, says comments. And it says, we love to hear from you, and then please,
Okay. It's general.
It's very general. I like open-ended. It's not that I don't always want to court disaster necessarily, but in terms of the tracking form, it might be helpful to have some additional notes. So,
on the comments form, do you ask if they want to be followed up and to provide contact information?
I made a note of that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Do you want to follow up as a option on comment?
So Carrie, if you had a situation happen, like you said, your child saw something that you don't think is appropriate or whatever, would you be more likely to use like the comment form, whether anonymously or not? That would be your choice. But if it had a section for materials concern,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think
rather than jumping to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't even know on the comment thing if you have to say materials or say, I think you could just leave it general. Because it's a concern.
It could be any kind of concern then.
It's just a concern.
If people are concerned, they let us know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was wondering, do you ever get a concern like, why are we not open on Sundays?
That one has no, actually, and remember we asked that question in the last community survey.
Yes.
We did, yeah. So no, on that one, typically, if we're gonna get a concern, there's lots of nice comments about staff, which is great. There's lots of like requests for materials, like can you get this book? There is a couple of questions about like wish you'd offer this program again or more of these or things like that. So okay.
Can I just make one comment?
Yes, of course.
Closure. What are we doing to indicate closure on any of these, I won't say problems, but concerns?
So what the feedback that I just got from some folks is that there should be like a follow-up comment on the comment card. Like, do you want follow-up? So that can give them closure on the comment or concern. So that would be a closure piece for that vehicle. For the request for reconsideration form, if it got to the point where they were filling it out, the timeline is filled out here on the steps, and then part of the policy, which we'll talk about next week, no, not next week, we'll talk about next month, is, I just love you all so much, would be that there's formal follow-up that they're owed, and that's part of the policy. So, yeah. Okay. I formally will end this discussion. It's been great.
I motion.
I second.
I was asking about the next item. We can just table it.
Yeah,
Do
so...
we need a motion for that? How would you like to have that handled?
What I'm hearing is that you guys want to skip collection development policy updates?
I would like to look it over a little bit more because I'll be honest with you, skimmed it.
Okay. It's a good read.
It is, actually.
Snuggle up with some hot chocolate. Okay, so then I do think we need a motion to defer it to next month.
I'd rather do it that way, so that's right.
I motion to defer.
There we go.
You don't have to be so excited about it.
To defer, looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Phyllis swooping in.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. The next item is the Employee Engagement Survey Plan.
I promise, 2 minutes. Here we go. One of the requests as we were finalizing the action plan for this year was an employee engagement survey. Two statements from that because I have a suggestion. One, of course, it should not come from me. That would not be a good idea. Two, I recommend it does not come from you guys. I think it should be run by an outside group, a formal process, because they are trained in writing those types of surveys. I mean, this can be sort of a human resource lens thing, and we want somebody who is trained in this area, and also somebody who's able to make recommendations based off of it, right? Like actually sort of come to conclusions. And I just think that's best done by somebody in sort of that occupational psychology type field. as it would so happen, I've recently met an occupational psychologist through some other professional opportunities. And they run, they're called Organization Development Consultants. They actually did work for the Muskego Police Department on their own like internal survey processes and whatnot. They do 360 reviews. That's part of their services. So I wanted to, one, let you know that this is a good time to do this. I'm kind of thinking it's part of our strategic plan, actually. And two, because I recommend it's not appropriate for me to do it, I think it is better done by somebody that is not not that you guys won't be connected to it and not get the information and whatnot, but I think it should be run by an outside group. I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to see how much it costs from this group. And I can get, some comparison quotes. I may find out that it's insane and I'll fall over, and then that's a separate conversation. But I wanted to let you know that one, I'm making movement on it, and two, this is sort of the path that I recommend pursuing.
Might Wills know of anyone who does a library-specific employee
And we could ask Wills as well.
I'm sorry, I jumped in. You had a question, Tony?
I would wonder, too, how the police department felt the whole service and the process was. Was it beneficial? Did it work out?
When I was wondering, is the city doing anything for their employees? Could we tap into?
I have not seen one as of late.
Maybe ask Rick if they're planning on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can ask
maybe you could tag along.
Right, yeah, get in that also.
Get in a freebie.
I think it'd be a great idea. Yeah. Okay, so I'm writing those 3 things down. How did Muskego Police find it? Does Wills do it? I will ask them, just out of idle curiosity, how much. And what else? What was the last one?
City. Ask
Thank
the city
you.
if they're
Thank
doing
you. Ask mayor if city is planning. Okay, very good. That was all I had to say about that.
Perfect.
All right. Final item, planned giving opportunity update.
At the end of last year, one of the some feedback that I got from the board was asking for the planned giving opportunity update. Here we go, very quickly. So I've been working on the planned giving opportunity, and just as a general background, planned giving is a structure in place where there's really intentionality and framework around telling people, have you considered us for your will? Have you considered, maybe transferring stocks to us or other such avenues? The board, years ago, back when baby Brittany was here in 2017, had said, hey, this is something, can you look into? And through a variety of reasons, it's taken until now to start developing this. So, quick background on what I have been doing. In March of last year, I developed a general plan for a planned giving booklet. Places like Marquette, they have a nice, little cardboard, little booklet, big, bright pictures, inspirational quotes, information about the library, sort of that why should I give type of thing. You want to give that to big donors, people who are really considering you. I submitted for a grant. I didn't receive it. Rude. In June of 2022, I submitted a similar grant to the Wills Ideas and Action Fund. I did not receive that as well. It's a tricky grant. I'm going to start targeting maybe a marketing grant because, unfortunately, the purpose of this is to make more money for us. And usually grants are more like, what are you doing for the community, that type of thing. So it's a tough grant when you're probably competing against libraries that are doing all these warm, fuzzy things to write. But I would love to fund it if I could. So in November, I started researching other library and nonprofit planned giving handouts and websites. So I looked at small libraries, big libraries, other nonprofit foundations, just to see what they were writing about, how they were talking about this. In January, I began to generate text for the booklet, and then came a question, which leads me here to today. Many years ago, the request that the board had for me, and I know it was a very different board back then, was to run it through the Friends. issue with running it through the Friends is that the Friends are not. What if the Friends aren't around in the future? The Friends are amazing, and they do so much for us, and I hope that will always be a group that can be revitalized, or not revitalized, but present. But there, I think, are some challenges in running it through the Friends. They are a 501c3, which offers appealing benefits to people who want to do types of giving like this. But at the same time, sometimes people can feel hesitant giving to a smaller community group versus like the library, right? And so I talked with the system directors met last Friday. And I asked them, I said, how many of you do planned giving through your Friends group, and how many of you, if you do it through the library? And a lot of what I was hearing is that they don't run it through the Friends group for the reasons that I just mentioned, that they either run it through themselves, or in order to achieve the 501c3 status, which is an encouragement, they run it through the Waukesha Community Foundation, which, as I talked with them about it, is basically you sign up to be a member, and as you can see, there's Friends of the Muskego Library are actually listed here, but lots of public libraries are part of the Waukesha Community Foundation. What it ends up doing is it makes our library, which is not a 501c3, it allows people to give to the Waukesha Community Foundation that is a 501c3, so they get the benefits, but then the money goes to us. Now the catch, because I thought, well, this is a gravy train, why haven't we done this, is there are fees to this. So what I wanted to tell you is I want to investigate the Waukesha Community Foundation, figure out more about what that relationship would look like. As you can see, a lot of libraries in our system are part of it, a lot of libraries in the area. So
non-Waukesha County libraries too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and it's been around for a long time, so I want to learn more about what the fees are, but I actually think that this might be the best of both worlds. One,
can you scroll back down? It looks like Pewaukee has $27,000 in revenue in theirs.
Yeah, and
there it is.
Yeah, so
I wonder how.
I think this might be the best opportunity, because I also think this puts a huge potential burden on the Friends if they're having to try to manage.
Well, the thing is, you're still in competition. I mean, I know that they're trying to help us, and we're trying to help them, but you're still in competition. So I'm on my alumni committee through my college, and we have the same situation where we have alumni who donate, and they'll either donate to the school thinking they're donating to us, or they're donating to us thinking it's going to the school, and it starts to get really gray when you have a combination thing. So you really need to keep it separate. You really do.
Yeah.
People could donate their will or whatever to the Friends if they want to.
They could.
I think it was more the 501c3 issue than anything. If I go back thinking, because I think I was part of that. And I think that was the concern, was that, most people want to donate to a nonprofit. So, but anyway.
So I think from a structure perspective, this would make the most sense. I still want to do the marketing that I was talking about, like the development of the pamphlet. I just think if we run it through the library, through this, makes more sense. And the Friends still have...
You have to create a foundation and get an EIN number.
Well, but I have to do a lot more research on it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, the initial goal that I was given was to run it through the Friends, and as I've started to do more research,
I would keep it separate.
I feel like this is the direction to go. And so I just wanted to tell you before I actually veered that I was veering, because, anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
I'm curious also, just because I keep bringing it up ad nauseum. When you looked at websites and that kind of thing, did you look at the St. Paul Library? Because they're the one that has this company within them. Did you look at their...
I didn't look at them, no. because they run that company that does advising
Mhm.
on that stuff. Yeah, I mean, we'd have to pay money for that.
Oh, I know, I understand
Yeah.
that. I was just saying, did you look at what St. Paul Library is doing? Maybe there's some insight there
Did
that
not look. No, I
you wouldn't find somewhere else.
Yeah, I will look there. Okay, well, that's what we got. That's life. That's all I have to say. We're
Okay. Anybody else have any comment? Okay. Well, be interesting to see what you find out. Thank you for that. All right, we are at the section, unless anybody objects. I don't think so. To communications and miscellaneous businesses authorized by law. Seeing nothing on there, unless somebody has something. Again, hearing nothing. Maybe it's an asset tonight for that. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
a motion.
I'll second.
I'll leave that up to you. I think everybody says
7.
All right. I get it.
all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 7:06 according to